What's going on, guys? Sticks here with the Token Minorities, bringing you another deck on Pokemon TCGO, and today I am bringing you a deck centered around Tyranitar Prime from, I think that's Undaunted, might be Unleashed, I'm pretty sure it's Undaunted, but again, I could be wrong, I don't know, all the Heart Gold, Soul Silver icons look the same to me. Even if you put them up next to each other, I could probably figure it out, but off the top of my head, not completely sure. But anyway, before I get into the deck, just a reminder that if you guys like this video or found it helpful, please leave a like, drop a comment, and maybe subscribe. It really does help us out a lot and lets us do more for you guys. And as for the question of the day, I have been fortunate enough to have accumulated quite a bit, quite a number of legacy decks, so I'm able to put out legacy content more consistently and kind of settle into a schedule. And a schedule that I have settled upon is one where I have a legacy deck every other Friday. And my question of the day really is centered around that. Do you guys like seeing legacy decks, or do you want to see more decks that you guys can build for yourselves and use for yourselves? Because in my experience, people don't, legacy decks are usually ones that people aren't searching for necessarily. Like, people aren't inherently looking for builds. A lot fewer people play legacy. And so I completely understand if you guys just want to see more decks in standard and expanded that you guys would be able to build, because legacy is its own set of cards that you need. And a lot of them are very expensive because the cards are from old packs that are no longer attainable except for like tournaments and then the occasional sale in the TCGO shop. But the question of the day is, do you guys want to see more legacy contents, which would be more than once every 2 weeks, or would you guys want to see it less often because you guys don't really want to see necessarily legacy content because you're not able to build it? Because the reason I went with once every 2 weeks is because legacy decks, when I was first getting into the TCG, I loved watching legacy decks, but wow, I say legacy decks like 30 different times. I loved watching legacy, but at the same time, I was under the impression that I would never be playing it. So while it was cool and entertaining to watch, I also wanted decks that I would be able to build. So really, let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. I went with 2 weeks because that way 5 out of the 6 uploads you get are decks in the standard and expanded format that you guys are more readily able to use and are more relevant to the current format. And then the one upload is kind of a more just entertaining, fun upload of an old deck revisited now. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below and why. I would love to hear what your guys' opinion is. But anyway, on to the deck. Like I said, centered around Tyranitar Prime, 160 HP, so really, really bulky, and 3 different attacks. This guy was, I believe, one of the first ones to have 3 attacks. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think he was one of the first ones to have 3 attacks, and all 3 are, the bottom 2 are mediocre. Power Claw, 3 for 60, meh. I mean, if it did 3 for 100, yes, I can 100% see using it, but 3 for 60 is just bad. It's just straight up bad. And then Megaton Tail, 4 for 120, you can get away with it in the legacy format, but then you have to discard the top 3 cards of your deck, which are normally resources that you want to hold on to. So really, the only attack you're ever going to use is Darkness Howl. This attack does 20 damage to each Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponent's, excluding any Darkness Pokemon. So the goal of this deck, get Darkness Pokemon onto the field, spread damage around to your opponent's deck, and then, spread damage around with using Darkness Howl. So that's the main attack that we're using. And when I first saw this card, I thought, okay, this has potential, but just 20 damage being spread around isn't enough, because while you can take like 10 prizes in a turn, you're probably going to lose by then. So what I'm pairing Tyranitar with is the Sinister Hand Dusknoir, so that way spreading 120 damage around your opponent's Pokemon each turn adds up very, very quickly. And then Sinister Hand lets you move the damage counters to Pokemon that are the particular threats or are easier prizes, that type of thing. So Tyranitar spreads 20 damage around with Darkness Howl. Dusknoir moves the damage counters onto something that you want to knock out with Sinister Hand. And then you really just have to set up the math nicely. That way your opponent gets knocked out with a combination of Darkness Howl and the occasional laser that you're able to get. Now, The other Pokemon that I'm actually pairing this with is a kind of cool idea that I was looking through the primes and came across this combination, and I really think it's awesome, starting with Absol Prime. So in this deck, you attack with Tyranitar, you move damage counters around with Dusknoir, but you start with Absol. And this card actually has straight up won me some games. As long as Absol is your active Pokemon, whenever your opponent puts a basic Pokemon from his or her hand onto his or her bench, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. So really, the goal with this deck, start with Absol, leave it there until your opponent sets up their board to where they've had to put 2 damage counters on each of the Pokemon that they play down. Let Absol get knocked out, play Tyranitar to get 20 more damage with Darkness Howl each turn, continually rack up damage with Hypnotoxic Laser, and then just Sinister Hand around the damage counters to where you can take knockouts where you need and where you can get it. So really, once this deck sets up, it's incredibly powerful. I mean, this deck is actually one of the most powerful decks I have come across once it's able to get set up. That being said, it is kind of clunky to get set up because you are relying on 2 stage 2s, so that's a little bit dangerous. Oh, by the way, I'm also running a Darkrai because of Dark Cloak. That's really the only reason I'm running Darkrai, is just to get that free retreat, because as you can see, we are not running any switching cards, so Darkrai is our main method of taking care of that. So yeah, that's why Darkrai's in there. But as for the Pokemon line, we are running 2 Absol because this is the guy that you want to be able to get into the active or to go into your opponent's turn. That way, when your opponent plays anything down, they have to put 2 damage counters on their Pokemon just to play it down. Running 1 Darkrai just because of that free retreat. 3-2-3 of Larvitar through Tyranitar because Tyranitar is very bulky, and if your opponent knocks out 3 of your Tyranitar, you're probably losing the game anyway. So that's why I only went with 3-2-3 as opposed to 4-2-4. Just because, I mean, 4-2-4 would just be a little bit too clunky to get this deck working. And then a 2-1-2 of Duskull through Dusknoir because Dusknoir just sits on the bench, doesn't attack, and, yeah, moves damage counters around. So, yeah, that's the line of Pokemon. As for the items, Computer Search, 1000% run Computer Search just because it gets you whatever puzzle piece you're missing in order to complete your setup. I mean, this deck actually doesn't have too horrible of a time setting up. However, it's still very clunky, so Computer Search gets you that one extra piece that you need in case you run across a situation where you're like, I need a Rare Candy, or I just need a Dusknoir. Computer Search is whatever you want it to be whenever you need it to be, and also the discard part of it isn't too horrible because we're only attacking with 1 Darkness Energy anyway, and also Dark Patch we are running in this deck, so being able to throw things into the discard pile isn't the worst thing in the world in this deck. Speaking of Dark Patch, running 2 of those, only 2 just because Tyranitar attacks for 1 energy anyway. So Dark Patch is if you need to Night Spear or if you want to try to power up a Tyranitar on the bench while using your attachment for the turn. Basically, Dark Patch is such an incredible item in any dark-centered deck that I couldn't not put it in the deck. So that's why running 2 of them there, only 2 because it's not really central to the deck strategy. 3 Hypnotoxic Laser to rack up damage to help with Darkness Howl and Eye of Disaster, all that. Basically, name of the game, just slowly accumulate damage on your opponent's board to where all of a sudden Dusknoir can just be like, yeah, that Pokemon's bugging me, I'm just going to get that off the board and not have to worry about it. So Hypnotoxic Laser is perfect for that accumulation of damage, and running 2 Virbank City Gyms to turn that 1 damage counter into 3, just, again, get more damage on the board. 4 Junk Arm, just because Junk Arm is so ridiculously useful. Be able to reuse a Hypnotoxic Laser, reuse a Max Potion, reuse a Rare Candy, all that stuff. So Junk Arm's just so good in this deck. 1 Max Potion. Now, really, I'm not the biggest fan. I mean, I really don't think Max Potion is 100% necessary in all matchups. However, because Tyranitar is very bulky at 160 HP, your opponent is rarely going to be one-shotting it. So they will have to get multiple hits, meaning that you just Max Potion up the Tyranitar, discard the 1 energy, just attach another energy, and you're good to go again. So that's why I'm running Max Potion in this deck, just for those situations where you need to heal up T-Tar. And also, by the way, you're going to be damaging your Dusknoir quite a bit with Darkness Howl because it does 20 damage to every non-Darkness Pokemon. So Max Potion has the utility of being able to heal up a bunch of damage from Dusknoir while at the same time healing up a Tyranitar. So Max Potion just was good enough to be put into this deck, but not central enough to the strategy that I run more than one. I'm running 2 PCOMs because, again, we're running two Stage 2s, and you're not going to have the Pokemon you need whenever you need it. So instead of having to discard with Ultra Ball or have an iffy search with Level Ball, PCOM is just like, okay, I have a Tyranitar in my hand, I kind of want a Dusclops, so play PCOM down, put the Tyranitar back in the deck, grab the Dusclops, and you're good to go. So only running 2 of these just because Ultra Ball just guaranteed gets you what you want, but PCOM is very, very nice in many scenarios, so that's why we're running that. 2 random receivers to get a supporter, because in Legacy you don't have Shaman. I mean, you have Jirachi, but I'm not running Jirachi. So random receiver can allow us to look through our deck and get a supporter. Well, randomly get a supporter, hence the name Random Receiver, but just help with consistency a little bit. 3 Rare Candy, I would be running 4, except we have 4 Junk Arms, so Junk Arm can work as another Rare Candy for the 2 lines of Stage 2s that we run. 1 Super Rod in case you have to Sycamore away a bunch of Tyranitars or Dusclopses, or you get a bunch of things knocked out, that type of thing. 1 Tool Scrapper, because if your opponent runs a Garbodor, while that doesn't shut down Absol, it shuts down Dusknoir and Darkrai, so you really want to be able to move the damage counters around to take out that Garbodor and take out your opponent's big attackers. So Tool Scrapper allows us to do that and allows us the freedom to just be like, okay, wait, hold on. Need to move this damage around first. All right, now we're good. So that's why Tool Scrapper's there. 4 Ultra Ball to guaranteed get what we want when we want and also get some darkness in the discard pile if we need it. And then I already went through the 2 Virbank. As for the supporters, running 4 Oak and 2 N. These guys are really the main ones that you're using in this deck because with 2 lines of Stage 2s, you don't want to always Juniper because you'll be getting rid of a lot of resources. So running Shuffle supporters is better early on. However, Juniper, I mean, you just can't beat the Draw 7. Like, Draw 7 is just such a powerful effect. And also this deck, like I said, doesn't always mind discarding resources with Juniper. I mean, don't get me wrong, it still does mind if you have like a hand of all 3 T-Tar and 2 Dusknoir and you have to Juniper, but it doesn't always, like, discarding isn't always just kind of a huge negative. So that's why I'm still running 3 Juniper, because the 7 cards are just so powerful, and then 9 Darkness Energy, so I can always have an energy when I need it. If, in my opinion, you probably go with 8 and then add another PCOM or another Dark Patch or another Max Potion or something, but 9 has worked well for me, and that's why I went with it. But wow, I've been talking way too long. Let's go ahead and see this deck in action. Alrighty, we have found one against Luxadream with it looks like it's a Rayquaza electric deck, and good lord, I am hoping we get some good battles, because every single, well, not every single time, but the majority of the time, as soon as I get into a match, my opponent just forfeits. So fingers crossed we can get something. I do get the absolutely ideal start of an Absol Prime, and I also have a Darkrai and an Energy in my hand, so I'm off to a very excellent opening hand. I really do like this hand. It's going to open up a lot of doors. It's going to make my opponent... Well, the best part about this matchup is that Rayquaza Electric fills up their bench so quickly. And what I can do, just play the Absol, play the Oak, get a new hand of 6, hopefully a Larvitar and a Duskull or something like that. I get neither, but I do get a Hypnotoxic Laser, so I can start racking up damage there. Unfortunately, no Virbank, but that is fine. I mean, well, not super fine, but it is still relatively fine. I'm in a pretty solid position. If my opponent wants to play down any Tynamos, Keldeos, all that, they will be taking 20 damage apiece when my opponent plays them down, and then as soon as I get a Dusknoir into play, I can just get rid of those electric and honestly just destroy my opponent's deck from there. So very, I mean, okay, I'd still rather have a Duskull and a Larvitar down, but still, this is a pretty solid first turn. My opponent is just going to Juniper. Already 50 damage on the board. I haven't even attacked yet. If my opponent plays down something else, they will just... Okay, yeah. Now there's 70 damage on the board. My opponent decides not to rush in and retreat with Keldeo, which I think is a gigantic mistake. And Alright, so it's going to be one of those again. My opponent just forfeits. I've already gone up like 50 points on the versus ladder. Everybody just forfeits as soon as they see the deck or as soon as they lose the coin flip. So, I mean, that's unfortunate, but you know what? We're going to push on, see if we can actually get some good matches with this deck. Okay, alright. 7 battles later, we found another one. I mean, well, 7 wins later. I swear, if you guys ever want to just versus ladder up like crazy, use this deck in Legacy, because I've already gone up like 80 points just trying to record, and like only one of those I've actually played out. So I start off with, you know what, it's solid enough. I get a Duskull, I can PCOM for a Larvitar. I would prefer an Absol. I mean, I'm actually probably just gonna PCOM for an Absol. Hopefully my opponent will just get more damaged, but either way, we're up against a Tool drop deck. Ooh, I get the Darkrai, so that is very nice to immediately get, because that means I can just play the energy onto the Duskull, get the free retreat from there. Let's PCOM away my Tyranitar Prime to grab that Absol, so my opponent, whatever they want to play down, like their Masquerains, their Sigilifts, their other Trubbishes, I can just go from there. Let's go ahead and Oak, get 6 fresh cards, see if we can get, ooh, this is very, very nice, because I even get a Larvitar, I get a Pupitar, I get a Darkness Energy. And not gonna lie, actually kind of wish I didn't have the Darkrai, so that I'd have to discard the energy off the Duskull in order to retreat, so that way I could Dark Patch onto my potential Tyranitar. And I could go for something, but I think I'm just gonna hold on to my hand, because if my opponent ends me, well, I get a fresh hand of 6 cards. I have nothing that I can necessarily computer search for this turn anyway, and I mean, I already have an ideal situation, because if my opponent gets a couple things down, I will just be able to, you know, rack up the damage with Absol. I can attach an energy, retreat, Dark Patch, hopefully get a Tyranitar, but, I mean, I'm just racking up damage on my opponent at this point. Like, Trubbish does rely quite a bit on EXP share, so by being able to spread around the damage like I'm going to be able to do, I will be able to just knock out the Trubbishes knock out the Trubbishes indirectly so that they can't take advantage of EXP share, and then at that point, I will just be in such a phenomenal position that my opponent really can't do anything. And look at that. 80 damage on the board already for my Dusknoir. That is incredible. I mean, that's... Even if my opponent plays down another thing, okay, there's the EXP share. That is fine. Okay. What I think I'm gonna do is computer search, probably just computer search for a Dusclops, actually. That way I can just go ahead and evolve Juniper. I really am in no hurry at this point. What Absol usually does is just sits there, racks up damage until I'm able to, until I'm fully set up, and I can just start Tyranitar, and ooh, even better. This is glorious. What I'm going to do is, let's play the Darkness Energy onto the Pupitar, and then, well, obviously Laser Bank. Laser Bank for sure. That way, even if my opponent knocks out my Absol, it's fine. If not, I just start racking up damage. If my opponent retreats the Trubbish, that's fine too. Either way, phenomenal, phenomenal position. I get, now there's 120 on board. My opponent even stays asleep. So there's going to be even more damage, and honestly, like, this is such a perfect setup. I have the Tool Scrapper that I can even use, but what I think I'm actually gonna do is hold on to that, because unless I top deck a supporter, I'm gonna have to Junk Arm for a computer search, which is gonna be discarding so many cards. I mean, it'll be 4 discards just to computer search, but at this point, if I don't have a supporter, I really, really, really do need one. And all I need to do is just draw into my Dusclops and Tyranitar. I don't need anything else. Yeah, I mean, beautiful position. My opponent even stays asleep. That's not a big deal because I'm going to knock him out anyway. And I get another laser. So glad that I held on to the Tool Scrapper, because I am just going to Junk Arm for a computer search, discard even more stuff to grab a Juniper. At this point, Colress would have been nice, but I mean, Juniper is just as well. It's one less card, but yeah, I don't know. I just like the consistency of it overall. If I can get a Tyranitar, I get a Tyranitar and a potential Dusknoir. This is perfect. So what I am going to do, get that Tyranitar up, Ultra Ball, probably get rid of the Duskull and the N, or the, no, the Rare Candy and the Duskull. That way I can hold on to my supporter, or, no. N and Duskull, definitely the better play. That way I can save the Rare Candy for later if I need to Rare Candy up into a Tyranitar, play the Dusclops down, start moving damage around, retreat into my Tyranitar, and here's where the, oh no, I don't get it. That's where the magic would have happened. I would have been able to set up my opponent's active Trubbish to be knocked out by a combination of Poison and Darkness Howl. I would have been able to set up my opponent's Trubbish on the bench to be knocked out by the 20 damage that I spread around, and then I just have so much damage on the board. So I was set up perfectly. I didn't get to do it. Oh, that's heartbreaking. That is very, very heartbreaking right there. But yeah, that's what happens when you do get set up. Your opponent's like, yeah, this is actually really, really good once you get it set up. But when your opponent sees that you're set up, they're like, yeah, I'm not dealing with this anymore, so they scoop. So almost had it. I'm gonna go for one more. I need to get one where I can actually show off what this deck does and not just what it has the potential to do with the setup. Guys, this is starting to get ridiculous. I have gone up I've gone up 140 ladder points while trying to record this, and only 2 matches so far have made it beyond the coin flip. Fortunately, okay, we made it past the coin flip. Usually my opponents just have forfeited as soon as the coin flip comes up, or as soon as the coin flip is flipped. So actually my opponent, oh no, please don't forfeit. Please, I can't do this again. Not again. No, please. Alright, well, it looks like we're about to go up 150 ladder points if my opponent just forfeits. But then again, you won't know because I'll just be deleting this recording, and it's gonna all go to waste. But I swear, if you want to ladder, if you want to just get easy ladder points, use this deck on the Legacy ladder, because 99% of the time your opponent will forfeit and you won't get a match. And okay, here we go. We got something. We have something. That's beautiful. So are going second, bit of a bummer, and I do start with a Duskull. I would have liked to have started with an Absol, especially against a Plasma deck where my opponent will load up the bench. So don't start with an Absol. That's pretty unfortunate. However, I do have some decent stuff in my hand. Man, Absol would have been so nice right here just to get all that damage on the Pokemon that my opponent plays down. But either way, I mean, that's what happens with this deck, is especially when you only run a couple Absol and you go second, you don't always get the ideal start. But this will be interesting because Plasma has the potential to just outspeed and absolutely wreck my entire life. But if we can get set up, we can actually start doing some stuff. And we see the Laser Bank. This is bad. Luckily, I do not get to sleep, so if I can pull out my Absol and get a Darkness Energy, I can kind of go from there. Get a Darkness Energy, probably just gonna go for Absol, just so I can have that thing out. Luckily, my opponent only played down one bench Pokemon, so I didn't lose all of the potential damage. I only lost 20, so that's fine too. What I think I'm gonna do is play down Larvitar, and do I want to play the other Duskull? I think no. I think I'm just gonna retreat into my Absol and go from there. That way I can just P-Com into a Tyranitar because of the Rare Candy I have in my hand. If my opponent had a Kyurem that he was starting to power up, then I would P-Com for I would just play down the Duskull and I wouldn't bother saving it for a P-Com next turn. But because my opponent does not have a Kyurem, and I wasn't worried about a Frost Spear knockout, and especially because my opponent just attaches to the Deoxys. Unfortunately, they do get the laser. However, as long as my opponent just keeps... Okay, so I think I will live going into my opponent's next turn, which is nice. Oh, this is gorgeous. I'm just going to go ahead and P-Com for the Tyranitar, and then double Rare Candy up my... That top deck of Dusclops was gorgeous. Or Dusknoir, sorry. All those Dusk, I just keep calling them the same thing. Let's just go ahead, double Rare Candy, get the Tyranitar and the Dusknoir, and hopefully get like a laser. Well, there we go. Okay, beautiful. And I can even get another Absol up if my Absol does go down. So what I think I'm going to do I have anything good in my discard pile that's worth junk arming for? I think so. I'm going to get rid of the Dusknoir and the other Absol just because I don't think it's necessarily worth it. Grab the Computer Search just for next turn. Well, yeah, then let's Laser. Start getting damage off on the Deoxys, and I think just end my turn. So I have the Computer Search for next turn. I can always Random Receiver for a supporter, and yeah, this way when the Absol goes down, inevitably, I mean, the Absol's going to go down to Poison or just whatever my opponent decides to go into. At least I have damage racking up. I get, yeah, the Deoxys are getting damaged. My opponent has the Thunderous. I have 30 damage on my opponent's active Deoxys. And he can retreat out, but at that point he'll be losing 2 energy, although Ride-Knuckle will be able to bring the energy back on board. So that's going to defeat the purpose a little bit. And I do lose my laser damage. But this is really nice because, okay, my Absol will go down. But at the same time, my Tyranitar is all ready to set up. I can Computer Search for another laser. I can Random Receiver for a supporter. So, I mean, this isn't bad. I got the mileage that I wanted to out of Absol. And even though my opponent is ahead, that is just fine with me. And, oh, that's perfect. I even top deck an Oak, so what I think I'm going to do, Random Receiver, see if I can get an N. Because I have the Oak anyway, so I wouldn't be discarding anything. So I wouldn't really be discarding anything that's overly valuable. And if I could get the Juniper, I wanted to. And alright, so my other laser's prized. Well, that's something. Might as well just Computer Search for a Darkness Energy. Well, that works. So do I want to... I think at this point my best play is just Ultra Ball to grab a Larvitar. I really think it is. I'm losing the laser damage, which is unfortunate. But at this point, I kind of have to do it. And then I am just going to Darkness Howl. Will put 20 onto my own Dusknoir and Larvitar, but I just need to start spreading damage around onto my opponent. I'm keeping the Junk Arm in my hand. That way I can Junk Arm for the laser next turn. And then I can just Juniper away the rest of my hand. So, kind of a clunky start. I mean, it's... Well, okay. I got to turn to Tyranitar and Dusknoir, so I can't say that this is clunky. But less than ideal start. Not exactly the setup you want. However, it's still working. I'm getting damage spread around. I would have liked to have had another laser. You know, not have a couple prized. So, I could get the damage from that as well. But fortunately, my opponent will not be able to knock out my Tyranitar this turn because Ride-Knuckle won't be enough. He does get the Kyurem. If he manually attaches, gets a Colress Machine, and gets a Laser, still wouldn't be enough. However, he would be able to knock out my Larvitar, which would be a problem, and I'd be all in on this Tyranitar. I do want to get another Tyranitar set up ASAP. That thing is going to be my method of winning this game, and my opponent does just Juniper. That is fine with me having to get rid of all of those valuable resources. I'm cool with that. I'm 100% cool with that. Would have been nice to get a little more damage off on the field, like have the poison racking up. And it looks like my opponent is just going to Ride-Knuckle up the Kyurem. Still, Frostbeer will not be able to knock out my Tyranitar. He will need a Hypnotoxic Laser in order to be able to do that. And I will be getting 120 damage on the board with Darkness Howl. 150 potentially with the laser if I get... Okay, so I'm going to have to discard 2 more Darkness Energy. Not the end of the world if I can Dark Patch up a Tyranitar for next turn. Let's go ahead, Laser that Thunderous potentially get... Nope, don't get to sleep. That is unfortunate, but... Alright, so I'm going to play the Darkrai down so I can have free retreat. I'm going to P-Calm away the Tyranitar to grab... I think a Pupitar. The Pupitar is probably the best way to go. I will be Darkness Howling it for another 20 damage, which sets it up for Frost Spear, which is kind of scary. But if my opponent doesn't choose to knock it out, I can still get even more damage on the board, and I can get another Tyranitar up, which will be absolutely ideal. And yeah, I mean the damage on the board is starting to rack up. I have 60 on the Deoxys, or 70 on one of them because one of them got lasered. I have 70 on the Thundurus, 20 on the Kyurem, but as long as I have the damage on the board, I have plenty. I'm in a good spot. Like, I just need to get a bunch of damage on the board. That way I can start taking knockouts on my opponent's attackers, because even though my opponent will be able to get this Kyurem powered up this turn, I'll be able to set it up to be knocked out immediately. Like, all I have to do is just Sinister Hand around the damage, and go from there. And this is where Max Potion will come in handy, because I am continually getting 30 damage onto my Dusknoir, which is kind of a problem. And my opponent just switches, so it didn't even need to retreat. That is unfortunate right there. And the Frost Spear will knock out the Pupitar. So, oh boy. This is looking kind of bad. Luckily, I'm getting incredible mileage out of this one Tyranitar. It is still alive. Unfortunately, if I had drawn anything but the Tyranitar, I would have just Ultra Balled for a Larvitar. But, okay, this works. I'm going to Ultra Ball, probably get rid of the Virbank and the Darkness Energy to grab a Larvitar. Or, no. I don't need the Juniper anymore, just because I need to do this. I need to have a Tyranitar set up. Play the energy onto the Larvitar. Sinister Hand. I'm moving the damage so I can knock out this Kyurem this turn. Let's go ahead and just move it off the Deoxys. I really would like my Max Potion right now. And this is the most tedious part of the match because I have to do so many different clicks in order to just get damage onto Sinister Hand. I mean, onto the Kyurem. Don't get me wrong. It is a lot better than it used to be where you had to click Sinister Hand each time you wanted to use it. But still, the fact that you have to click twice, Dusknoir does the damage, and then you have to see the animation, and then you have to click twice again, see the animation. This is where your turns start to take forever. But either way, my damage is on the board. I have the Kyurem set up for a knockout with a Darkness Howl. I have another Tyranitar set up for next turn. I think I'm just going to spread the damage out a little more in case my opponent happens to play like Max Potion or something like that. Then that's all I need. I think... Can I take a Darkness Howl knockout on the Thunders this turn? I think yes, so I'm going to go 100% go for that. There's more than enough damage on board, so I will take a 3-prize turn, get rid of all of my opponent's true attacking methods. I mean, he can still attack with Deoxys, but you know what? At this point, it's fine. I'm just spending forever and a day to get all the damage where I want it to be. This is where, I mean, this deck would be so much nicer in real life. But yeah, now I'm just spreading it out in case my opponent has Potion or Max Potion or something like that. That way he can't just Potion up one of his Deoxyses and just get all the damage off right there. And I think, yeah, I'm set up. I am going to now Darkness Howl, put 20 damage onto my Larvitar and my Dusknoir, but I do take 3 prizes this turn, which is beautiful. I get a Super Rod. I can put some Larvitar and Tyranitar back into the deck. This was great. My opponent, almost all of his attackers are off the board, except, I mean, Deoxys will be able to knock me out if my opponent has a Prism, but that's not a problem. And there's a Laser and a Dark Patch. That is gorgeous to see right there. I will, yeah, I mean, that's beautiful. I love seeing that. As long as my opponent doesn't end me. If my opponent ends me, I'm going to be in a little bit of trouble. But at this point, I mean, there's even enough damage on the board to where I can... If my opponent starts getting another thing powered up, he's even going to laser my Tyranitar. Does that mean he doesn't have an energy on the Deoxys? Or that could mean that my opponent's going to just manually attach to something on the bench, let the poison take its knockout on my Tyranitar, and... Okay, I think that's what my opponent's going to do. I think my opponent's going to go for another... Kyurem on the bench, let the poison take the knockout on the Tyranitar Prime, let the Deoxys take the hit or whatever. But the thing is, it's not even about taking hits anymore. I mean, this deck, you don't necessarily attack the active, you just get damage on the active. That's what this deck relies around. So what I am going to do, go ahead, start poisoning this Deoxys, get more damage racking up, Rare Candy into another Tyranitar Prime so that I can continually Darkness Howl. Is there any way I can take a knockout this turn? I don't think so. So what I am going to do is Super Rod first, back in Larvitar, Pupitar, and Tyranitar. Just Super Rod back in a line of that. And my opponent actually forfeits! Yes! Oh my goodness, we beat a Plasma deck with this. Oh, ew. Just horrible flips all around. But Tyranitar Prime plus Dusknoir was just too much. My opponent couldn't deal with the spread damage that I was able to apply with a single energy. I mean, getting essentially 120 damage out of a single energy is ridiculously good. And then you combine that with Dusknoir and Poison, and as soon as your opponent plays down an attacker, that thing is immediately in danger of just having all of the damage thrown onto it and then knocked out immediately. So that is exactly what this deck was supposed to do. I'm so glad we were able to get a real match against a real deck and beat it. So I'm done. That's it. I went up like 150 points in the process of trying to record with this deck. I finally got a couple decent ones. So thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff. And this is Sticks signing out. Why not? See you guys.